The jungle is quiet at dawn. A soft mist rolls over the ancient stones, and from the shadows, the faces of Angkor Thom slowly emerge, colossal, serene, and haunting. Towering roots of strangler figs wrap around forgotten doorways like nature's fingers, clutching at secrets buried for centuries. This is Angkor, once the beating heart of the Khmer Empire, now a city of ghosts. But this is not the Angkor most tourists see. Beyond the postcard images of Angkor Wat lies something stranger, traces of temples that shouldn't exist, ruins that vanish from historical maps, and structures whose purpose even archaeologists can't fully explain. Some were swallowed by the jungle so completely that only LIDAR technology recently brought them back to light. Others, if local legends are to be believed, disappeared overnight. Who built these temples? Why were some of them abandoned in haste, while others were deliberately dismantled stone by stone? And why do certain inscriptions hint at events too extraordinary to fit neatly into the history books? Tonight, we will step beyond the official story of Angkor and into its shadow world, a place where history meets myth, and science struggles to keep up. We'll uncover the clues that point to something much older, much more sophisticated, and perhaps, much more mysterious than we were ever taught. So settle in, let the mist gather around you, and prepare to descend into a story that is part archaeology, part conspiracy, and part ghost tale. Because the vanished temples of Angkor are not just ruins, they are messages carved in stone, waiting for someone brave enough to decipher them. Long before its fall into silence, Angkor was the center of the most dazzling civilization in Southeast Asia. Around the 9th century, the Khmer Empire rose from the fertile plains of Cambodia and began building a city unlike anything the region had ever seen. Over centuries, Angkor became a sprawling metropolis of stone and water, a city said to rival the great capitals of Rome and China in both scale and ambition. At its height, Angkor covered nearly 400 square kilometers, making it the largest pre-industrial city in the world. Grand avenues led to temple complexes carved with exquisite detail, gods, demons, and celestial dancers frozen in eternal motion. Towering lotus-shaped spires pierced the sky, symbolizing Mount Meru, the sacred center of the Hindu universe. Its temples were not merely places of worship, they were cosmic diagrams, designed to align heaven and earth. The Khmer kings were master builders and visionaries. Under rulers like Suryavarman II and Jayavarman VII, Angkor became an architectural symphony of temples, reservoirs, canals, and causeways. They engineered an intricate hydraulic system capable of feeding hundreds of thousands of people, a feat so sophisticated that researchers today are still unraveling how it worked. And yet, the deeper you go into Angkor's history, the stranger it becomes. Some inscriptions speak of kings who ruled for impossibly long reigns, of city plans dictated by divine visions, and of technology that seems almost ahead of its time. The precision of certain temple alignments, with solstices, equinoxes, and star systems, has led some scholars to wonder whether the Khmer inherited knowledge from an earlier, more ancient civilization. Even the name Angkor is a clue, derived from the Sanskrit Nagara, meaning city. It hints at an unbroken connection to India's mythic past. But how much of Angkor's story was written by human hands, and how much by something we can no longer explain? What is clear is that Angkor was not merely a city, it was a statement of cosmic order. Every temple, every reservoir, every carving was designed to mirror the heavens. But what happens to a civilization so deeply tied to the cosmos when its stars begin to fade? If Angkor was the crown jewel of the Khmer Empire, then its temples were the shining stars in that crown. But what if we told you that what we see today, the majestic Angkor Wat, Bayon, Ta Prohm, may represent only a fraction of what once existed? There are whispers, both in ancient chronicles and modern research, of temples that have vanished, erased from maps, swallowed by the jungle, or perhaps never meant to be seen by mortal eyes again. French explorers of the 19th century, the first outsiders to document Angkor's ruins, wrote of local guides speaking in hushed tones about forbidden temples deep in the forest. Some swore they had seen colossal doorways and towering spires far beyond the main complexes, half buried under roots. Others warned that those who tried to approach them often disappeared themselves. These weren't just stories meant to scare, they were warnings, passed down for centuries. Fast forward to today, and technology has begun to catch up with legend. LIDAR scans, laser-based mapping systems, have revealed entire hidden city grids under the dense Cambodian canopy. Roads, canals, and yes, temples, appear on these scans like glowing fingerprints of a civilization far bigger than we ever imagined. Some of these structures have no names in historical records. Others appear in old royal chronicles but were thought to be mythical, until now. Yet here is the strangest part, even when researchers try to reach these sites, access is often blocked, sometimes by the density of the jungle, sometimes by authorities citing conservation concerns, and sometimes by reasons no one fully explains. Why are some of these sites so rarely visited, even by archaeologists? Is it simply logistics, or are there discoveries there that could rewrite history? Local folklore offers unsettling clues. In some villages, elders speak of temples that walked into the earth after great storms or celestial events. Others say the gods themselves hid these places when humanity became unworthy. As strange as it sounds, there are accounts of explorers who claim to have found a temple one year, only to return the next and find nothing but an empty clearing where it stood. Of course, skeptics argue that many of these so-called lost temples are simply collapsed structures reclaimed by nature. The Cambodian jungle is relentless. Within decades, even stone cities can be reduced to moss-covered mounds. But that explanation doesn't satisfy everyone. Why do some temples seem to have been deliberately dismantled, their stones carted away? Why do certain carvings appear half-finished, as if abandoned overnight? It is here, in the vanished temples of Angkor, that the story turns from archaeology to something far stranger. These are not just missing buildings, they are missing chapters of human history, chapters we might not be ready to read. And as we peel back the layers of soil, roots, and myth, we are forced to ask, what, exactly, were these temples built for? The answer may lie not just in the stones that remain, but in the ones that are gone. When you stand before an Angkor temple, the first thing that strikes you is its scale. The second thing, if you look closer, is its precision. The sandstone blocks fit together with almost impossible accuracy, some so perfectly aligned that not even a blade of grass could slide between them. And yet, as stunning as the craftsmanship is, certain details don't quite add up. Take Angkor Wat, for instance. Its central tower aligns almost perfectly with the rising sun on the spring equinox, not just approximately, but with a precision that would challenge even modern engineers without computer models. Some researchers argue this was intentional, a cosmic clock built into the stone itself. Others dismiss it as coincidence. But then you find the same astronomical alignments at other temples, Bayon, Preah Khan, and even some of the newly discovered sites, and coincidence starts to feel less convincing. Then there are the carvings. On the walls of Ta Prohm, amidst the dancers and floral motifs, sits something that looks shockingly like a stegosaurus, a creature supposedly extinct for 65 million years. Is it just a stylized depiction of a rhinoceros? Or is it evidence that ancient people had knowledge of creatures we believe they could never have seen? Equally puzzling are the construction techniques. Some lintels weigh several tons and were lifted to great heights without cranes or iron tools as we know them. Stone blocks were quarried miles away and somehow transported across rivers and dense jungle. Official explanations point to elephants, bamboo scaffolding, and thousands of workers, but the sheer speed and scale of construction implied by inscriptions suggest a logistical system beyond what most historians are comfortable admitting. Even stranger, some temples bear marks of advanced stoneworking techniques, like drill holes and perfect circular cuts, that seem out of place in the 12th century. Were these techniques borrowed from somewhere else, perhaps an earlier civilization that passed down its knowledge? Or are we seeing evidence of something entirely different, a technology that has been lost to time? And then there are the anomalies that remain unsolved. Magnetic disturbances have been recorded near certain temple complexes. Some visitors report that compasses spin or electronics fail near specific sanctuaries. While scientists attribute this to iron content in the laterite foundation stones, others wonder whether these sites were deliberately placed on energy-rich locations, ancient power centers designed to harness forces we barely understand. What emerges from all these clues is a picture that doesn't fit neatly into the history books. The temples of Angkor were not just ceremonial sites, they were precision instruments, cosmic calendars, and perhaps even repositories of forgotten knowledge. If we can understand why they were built with such precision, we might begin to understand why some of them vanished. Because the deeper we look, the clearer it becomes, the builders of Angkor were not merely architects, they were astronomers, mathematicians, and perhaps, keepers of secrets meant to last for centuries. If the temples were Angkor's soul, its water system was the beating heart that kept the empire alive. Stretching across the landscape were vast reservoirs, barays, some over 5 miles long, connected by a web of canals and spillways. This wasn't just irrigation, this was a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering. The system fed rice fields, supplied drinking water, and even regulated flooding during the monsoon season. In many ways, Angkor was a water city, pulsing with life as rainwater moved through its veins. Archaeologists marvel at its complexity. The West Baray alone could hold over 50 million cubic meters of water, an artificial lake so perfectly aligned it still astonishes engineers. Some researchers believe the barays were more than practical tools, they may have held symbolic meaning, mirroring the cosmic oceans described in Hindu cosmology. Once again, Angkor blurs the line between functionality and spirituality. But no system, no matter how brilliant, is immune to failure. At some point in the 14th or 15th century, the delicate balance began to collapse. Evidence shows that canals silted up, reservoirs overflowed, and massive floods alternated with devastating droughts. Without a reliable water supply, Angkor's agricultural base faltered, and with it, the population. Official history teaches that this environmental breakdown, combined with invasions from neighboring kingdoms like Ayutthaya, led to the city's abandonment. Yet some scholars argue that this is too neat a conclusion. If Angkor simply declined, why are there signs of sudden, even violent desertion? Some temples appear to have been ritually decommissioned, their statues buried, their sanctuaries sealed. Others were left mid-construction, as if builders downed their tools and never came back. Was Angkor undone by nature, or by something more deliberate? Some suggest internal political struggles fractured the empire. Others whisper of pandemics, plagues, or spiritual crises that drove the population away. And then there are theories that hint at something more secretive, that certain temples were dismantled or hidden to protect powerful knowledge from falling into the wrong hands. Whatever the cause, the collapse of Angkor remains one of history's great enigmas. When the water stopped flowing, the city's lifeblood drained away, and with it, the memory of why so many of its temples were left to vanish. And this is where the story grows darker. Because if Angkor's fall was simply an accident of climate and war, we could explain it away. But the evidence suggests something else, something intentional. And that leads us straight into the myths that might hold the key to understanding what really happened. To understand Angkor, we must step into its mythology, because for the Khmer, myth was not merely a story. It was a blueprint for how the world worked. The temples are filled with carvings that depict cosmic battles, divine alliances, and the eternal struggle between good and evil, the Devas and the Asuras. The most iconic of these scenes is the churning of the ocean of milk, carved into the bas-reliefs of Angkor Wat. It shows gods, Devas, and demons, Asuras, pulling on the body of a cosmic serpent wrapped around Mount Mandara, using it as a giant churn. As they tug back and forth, the ocean of existence itself begins to swirl, releasing treasures, and even the elixir of immortality. At first glance, it seems like a mythic story meant to inspire devotion. But what if it's more than that? Some researchers see this depiction as a metaphor for vast cosmic cycles, creation, destruction, and renewal, cycles that may have coincided with real-world astronomical events. Others wonder if it encodes advanced knowledge of timekeeping, celestial mechanics, or even energy. Legends say the gods themselves instructed the Khmer kings where to build their temples, guiding them through dreams and visions. Some inscriptions describe encounters with beings who descended from the heavens or emerged from the Naga realm. Were these poetic flourishes, or historical accounts of events we can no longer explain? Local folklore adds even more layers. In some stories, the Asuras were not entirely evil, they were simply keepers of dangerous power, fighting to stop humanity from misusing it. Could the vanished temples have been part of this struggle, hidden away to prevent their secrets from being abused? And then there are the Naga, the serpent beings said to dwell beneath the earth and guard sacred knowledge. Many Khmer kings claimed descent from a Naga princess, cementing their divine right to rule. Some villagers believe the Naga are still there, slumbering beneath the ruins, waiting for the world to be ready. For archaeologists, these myths are symbolic. For spiritual seekers, they are evidence that Angkor was more than just a city, it was a meeting point between worlds. Whether you see them as metaphors or as hidden history, the myths of the Devas and Asuras offer a tantalizing possibility, that Angkor's story is part of a much older narrative about humanity's connection to the divine. And if that is true, then what lies buried beneath Angkor might not just be stone, but knowledge meant to awaken us. Every great mystery has its forbidden chapter, and Angkor is no exception. While tourists marvel at the postcard-perfect temples, there are whispers of discoveries that never make it into the guidebooks. These are the findings that spark debate, divide scholars, and sometimes vanish from the public record altogether. In the mid-20th century, several expeditions reported uncovering strange artifacts beneath collapsed sanctuaries, objects that didn't match Khmer craftsmanship. Some were rumored to be metallic tools, oddly shaped and impossibly well preserved, suggesting techniques unknown in the 12th century. A few photographs supposedly exist, but they are locked away in archives, accessible only to a handful of researchers. There are also accounts of skeletal remains, unusually tall, with cranial features that some researchers privately admitted were anatomically atypical. Official reports attribute these to natural variation, but conspiracy theorists argue they are evidence of a forgotten race or elite priesthood physically distinct from the common population. Then there are the missing inscriptions. Archaeologists have noted entire panels where writing was carefully chiseled away, leaving smooth scars in the stone. Was this vandalism by later invaders, or a deliberate attempt to erase certain knowledge? Some of the most damaged panels were said to record astronomical events or royal decrees that might have explained why certain temples were abandoned. Modern researchers using LIDAR and ground-penetrating radar claim to have found entire temple foundations that remain unexcavated, their entrances sealed under centuries of earth. Yet funding to investigate these sites often stalls, or permission is mysteriously delayed. Officials cite conservation concerns, but skeptics whisper about deeper reasons, that what lies beneath could challenge the entire historical timeline of Angkor. And occasionally, a story slips through the cracks. Villagers speak of researchers who dug too deep and were ordered to stop. Rumors swirl about chambers containing artifacts that could change history, quietly removed and sent to undisclosed locations. Whether these tales are truth or folklore, they add to the sense that Angkor still guards secrets not meant for everyone. The question becomes unavoidable: why hide this information? Is it simply a matter of preserving heritage sites, or is there something about these discoveries, their nature, their implications, that would upend the world's understanding of human civilization? Because if the most extraordinary evidence of Angkor's past remains sealed away, then what we know is just the surface, and the real story lies in the darkness below, waiting to be revealed. For centuries, Angkor kept its secrets hidden under layers of earth, jungle, and myth. But in the last 2 decades, technology has begun to peel back that veil, and what it has revealed is nothing short of astonishing. The breakthrough came with LIDAR, light detection and ranging, a technology that fires thousands of laser pulses from aircraft and maps the ground beneath the forest canopy. In 2012, archaeologists launched a sweeping LIDAR survey of the Angkor region. What appeared on their screen stunned even the experts: a sprawling, interconnected city network that stretched far beyond the well-known temple complexes. Suddenly, Angkor was no longer just a single city but an entire urban civilization, with roads, canals, reservoirs, and hundreds of previously unknown structures. Some of these sites had no historical records, as though they were deliberately forgotten. Others perfectly matched descriptions from ancient chronicles once dismissed as legend. Even more unsettling were the alignments. Some of the newly discovered sites seemed to form geometric patterns over dozens of kilometers, as if laid out according to a master plan. Researchers are still debating whether this was for practical reasons, water management, defense, or something more symbolic, perhaps even astronomical. Ground-penetrating radar has gone a step further, revealing chambers beneath certain temples, chambers that have yet to be excavated. Some are eerily symmetrical, as though they were intentionally hidden. A few scans even suggest the presence of metallic objects, leading to speculation that ceremonial or technological artifacts may lie undisturbed below. But here's where the mystery deepens: not all of these findings have been made public. Some LIDAR data sets remain restricted, and certain proposed excavations have been quietly shelved. Are authorities protecting fragile sites, or are they protecting us from what we might find? Even the scientists admit that with every new discovery, the mystery only grows. One archaeologist famously remarked, "The more we uncover, the less we understand what Angkor really was." It's as though the city is teasing us, revealing just enough to keep us searching, but never enough to let us solve the puzzle. Technology has given us the clearest view of Angkor in centuries, but it has also exposed just how little we truly know. And if these revelations are just the beginning, what else might lie hidden, not just beneath the ground, but beneath the story we think we know? By now, we've uncovered the rise of Angkor, its brilliant engineering, its collapse, and its lingering mysteries. But what does it all mean? To answer that, we must step into the realm of theories, some grounded in scholarship, others whispered on the edges of forbidden history. The most conventional theory is the one most textbook cite: Angkor collapsed due to a combination of environmental stress, political infighting, and external invasions. The canals failed, the rice harvests dwindled, and the empire became too fragile to defend itself. Eventually, the royal court abandoned the city, moving south toward Phnom Penh. It's a compelling story, but one that doesn't quite explain the deliberate dismantling of certain temples or the eerie precision of their astronomical alignments. Some researchers argue that Angkor may have been built on top of an even older city, one whose memory faded into legend. This lost civilization hypothesis suggests that the Khmer inherited sacred sites from a culture with advanced knowledge of astronomy and engineering, then built their own temples over them. The idea is supported by anomalies in building styles. Certain foundations seem older than the temples above them, and some alignments match star positions from thousands of years earlier. Others see Angkor not just as a city but as a kind of spiritual machine, a network designed to harness cosmic or telluric energy. In this view, the berets were not just reservoirs but batteries, the temples acted as transmitters, and the entire city functioned as a living mandala. Some proponents even point to the magnetic anomalies recorded near certain sanctuaries as evidence that Angkor was designed with an energetic purpose we have yet to decode. And then there are the more radical theories, the ones that give mainstream historians headaches. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that the precision engineering of Angkor, combined with myths of gods descending from the sky, hints at extraterrestrial influence. They point to the Stegosaurus carving at Ta Prohm, the sudden appearance of advanced hydraulic systems, and the mathematical perfection of Angkor Wat as signs that the Khmer may have been guided by knowledge beyond their time. Skeptics dismiss these ideas as pseudoscience, insisting that human ingenuity is explanation enough. And perhaps it is. After all, the Khmer Empire was brilliant, disciplined, and deeply motivated by its religious vision. But the unanswered questions remain: why some temples seem to have been hidden, why inscriptions were erased, why the city's decline was so sudden and total. Another theory ties Angkor's fate to cyclical disasters, massive droughts followed by flooding, that not only destroyed crops but also devastated morale. In this telling, the abandonment of the city was not just practical but spiritual. The people may have believed that the gods had turned against them, forcing them to leave the cosmic center they had so carefully built. The truth may lie somewhere between history and legend, between science and myth. Perhaps Angkor's story is not one answer but many, a mosaic of environmental, political, and spiritual forces converging to end one of the greatest civilizations on Earth. And yet, the feeling remains that we are missing a final piece, a key that could unlock the full meaning of this city of stone. That key might still lie hidden beneath the jungle, waiting for us to find it. Night falls over Angkor. The jungle comes alive with the sound of cicadas, and the great stone faces of Bayon seem to watch silently as darkness wraps around them. Standing here, under the same stars that the Khmer kings once gazed upon, it's impossible not to feel the weight of centuries pressing in. We've journeyed through the rise of a civilization that built the largest city of the pre-industrial world, through temples aligned with the heavens, and through a water system so advanced it fed an empire. We've followed its sudden collapse, the temples that disappeared, the clues half buried in the earth, and the myths that refused to die. And still, the question lingers, what really happened here? Science offers some answers: drought, war, disease, and perhaps these are true. But Angkor is more than a case study in collapse, it is a riddle carved in stone. The precision, the planning, the myths of gods and nagas, the hidden chambers, they all suggest that Angkor's purpose was greater than we yet understand. Perhaps that's why the city still captures us. It speaks to something primal, something just beyond our reach. Angkor is both a warning and an invitation, a reminder that civilizations, no matter how mighty, can vanish. And a challenge to us, the living, to uncover what they left behind before it is lost forever. So as we leave these ruins behind, we are left with a haunting thought: the story of Angkor is still being written. Every scan of the jungle, every excavation, every deciphered inscription brings us closer to the truth, but perhaps the final revelation is not meant to be easy. Perhaps it is meant to test our curiosity, our persistence, our willingness to question the past. One day, the jungle may give up its last secret, and when it does, we may finally know why these temples were built, and why some were made to vanish. Until then, Angkor remains what it has always been, a mystery waiting for the right eyes to see it.